From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson with you, and here's what's coming up. K-State's Dan O'Brien on the grain markets. He'll break down the recent successes in U.S. soybean, grain, sorghum, and wheat exports, which have bolstered already strong prices even more. And he'll talk about how local corn price offers around Kansas are bidding aggressively for acres to be planted this spring. Then the 2022 Alumni Fellow for the K-State College of Agriculture, being so honored here on campus this week, Saline County farmer Justin Knopf, who has built his operation around a firm commitment to land and resource stewardship. He'll talk about that with us. And standing by with the latest on the Kansas agricultural weather outlook is K-State's Chip Redmond. All that here on Agriculture Today. You are tuned into the K-State Radio Network and Agriculture Today. It's our Friday edition, meaning we will let you know what's going on, first of all, on the grain markets, and with the good help of our regular guest. Dan O'Brien is a grain market economist with K-State Research and Extension. Well, Dan, of course, we've got this volatility which riddles the markets almost on a daily basis here, but you generally say at the outset that we see these markets somewhat range-bound right now.
Well, yes, particularly for soybeans. Again, we'd see that soybeans, since we'll kind of preface things in the context of the March 7th run-up. That's when prices shot so high for the markets. And soybeans had gotten up to about $17.50. That would be the May contract. Came back the day after that on the 8th and dropped down to about $15.75. Since that time, have gotten down as low, back down again to the same low, and just within the last day or so, gotten up to $17.48. So, yeah, there's a lot of volatility, a lot of movement within a $15.75 to $17.50 range, but still, it does seem like that if we trade above that or below that, that would be something different than what's been happening since early March. And here, yesterday, May closed, as we talked about, at the high since that time of $17.48 and a quarter. For corn, we had jumped up actually with the movement now above $8 for corn. Again, yesterday's closed $7.99.5, and that was down 16 cents from 8 plus the day before. Again, on March the 7th, we had jumped up to about $7.80, something like that, and traded down as low as about $7.15. Well, in the last week, we moved a lot higher than that range of about $7.80. It closed up as high as $8.25, and now have moved to the lower side. In fact, now we're, as you and I were talking about before we came on air, we have cash prices for corn now and across the state at Colby at $8.05, Garden City at $8.50. So positive basis for both of those. Topeka at the top bid, $8.15, $8.03 at Hutchinson, $7.95 at Columbus, $7.75 in Salina. And that's on a day when the May lead futures were down 16 cents. So $8 cash corn, a lot of locations across the state, something that we would have been surprised to have seen. I should add in also that new crop bids for corn are also doing tremendous. At these places that we've been watching, really a range on the low side of $7.14 in Columbus to a high side of $7.69 in Garden City. And the ratio of new crop corn bids to soybean bids, again, it's figured by having beans over corn on that. All those ratios, in western Kansas and Garden City, Colby, it's below 2. So strong impetus trying to encourage corn acres to be planted, especially in Kansas where we have such a use for it, but really not a lot of weakness elsewhere. You see a 205 range with Salina bids, 2.02 in Hutchinson, Columbus 2.05, Topeka 2.09, and generally we think 2.25, 2.3 is neutral. So as Kansas votes, the elevators are seeking to encourage new crop corn acres, it sure seems.
Yeah, the bidding for acres is certainly playing out right now here in the state of Kansas. You've been keeping a close eye, speaking of corn, on the ethanol bids in the state. What's the latest on that front, Dan?
Kansas also, here sounds like we're beating the drum for Kansas today, which is not a bad thing to do. But we have the highest range of corn bids at ethanol plants reported on yesterday's markets. Our range in Kansas from 8.35 3/4 to 8.60 bids at the plants. Ranges from a 20 over the May contract to 50 over the July. So we do have some straddling going on of contracts in terms of what the cash bids are. And that compares to a range, say, in Illinois, probably the next closest is about 798 to 851, and Nebraska, 784 to 830. So given the ethanol plants that we have, and in particular livestock feeding operations, we've got strongest cash corn market in the United States. And if I'm wrong, then show me the numbers. We just have a very, very strong corn market. Ethanol in Kansas listed yesterday, 252 to 258, and it wasn't long ago, Eric, we were looking at about $2 as something we were hoping to stay at. So you're seeing that situation. Of course, policy initiatives coming this summer are all an encouragement for a strong ethanol market, and we'll see where all that goes.
Briefly here on grain sorghum, speaking of contending for acres, what does that look like here in the state of Kansas currently?
Well, the strongest new crop bids actually listed in Colby in northwest Kansas, $7.44 for harvest, but nothing weak really anywhere else. You had a Garden City at 704, Topeka 718, as is Salina, also Hutchinson, all of them 718 for the top new crop bid, 699 in Columbus. Cash prices all running in the range of about 780 to about 790 for sorghum. So again, these are great markets for that as well. I would say part of that strength in the sorghum market may have to do with a week in which we had strong exports. For the week ending April the 14th, exports of about 11 million bushels. And again, we kind of bounce around the sorghum. We have one or two down weeks and then strong weeks. Well, we've had having several pretty good grain sorghum export weeks in a row. But I think this 11 is near the top of what we've seen here of late. So we need a pace of about 6.6 million bushels to meet the USDA's projection. So with that type of pace, you do wonder about in that May report coming up, if we'll see the USDA increase the export numbers for grain sorghum. You would wonder with the pace we've been seeing and tighten up ending stocks a little bit. So we'll see where that goes, and that may also be the case, again, depending on what we see coming out of South America with some crop concerns emerging for second crop corn, even some dry areas, Mato Grosso in particular, and that being one of the issues along with Ukrainian shortfalls that's holding up these tremendous corn prices, that the USDA probably will come in and be forced to make some adjustments on usage and probably to the higher side on some of these crops, particularly corn and grain sorghum on the export side. And
exports, once again, for soybeans, we're selling at a semi-feverish pace. Soybeans now, are we not?
Well, they had crop problems, that lessened their crop in South America, and there aren't that many places in the world that sell soybeans. We had a pace for the week ending April the 14th of about 33 million bushels. You need about 21 million to meet the USDA's forecast. So very likely that the pace of exports from now to the end of this market, and that's anticipated, could probably force the USDA to raise their export number, tighten ending stocks again. And when you look at soybean ending stocks in the United States, they're projected to be, for this marketing year that we're in, at about 6.5%. We have been down to about 2% before, but these extraordinary times that we're in probably forcing the USDA's current marketing year numbers ending August 31st down closer yet to that 2 and 3 area, when they had, I wouldn't say it's a comfortable margin, but at least they weren't at 2 or 3%. They were at 6.5%, and very, very likely to see things tightened up. Of course, we talk about these numbers, supply demand balance sheets, but those things are kind of dwarfed by just how strong these prices are, and either the real or imagined or worried about shortfalls in all these crops on a worldwide basis that are anticipated. And that's what's giving us these tremendous markets, almost markets of a lifetime, really, without using too much hyperbole, in the grain markets.
And to that, topping off the export side, we are selling some wheat, not as prolifically as we're selling, say, beans, but at least the U.S. is moving some of that crop.
Yeah, we had a decent hard red winter wheat marketing week this last week, better than we had been having, about 7 million bushels. We're still behind the USDA's projection for what we need to get to the end of the market year, but 7 million bushels better than what we had been seeing of 3 or 4 per week. Overall, still some market disappointment apparently on not seeing the Ukraine-Russia challenges force more U.S. wheat sales. And again, I don't doubt that day will probably come, given the challenges they're going to have getting any wheat out of Ukraine that in a timely manner in quantity. But when that day comes, we'll say, well, boy, then we'll really have hot markets. But how do we not say we have hot markets already when you're looking at July futures at 1143.5? Does that mean we go higher? It's possible. Once you actually see the business do come to the U.S., which it seems it's destined to do someday, then where do the wheat markets go? They're already at 11 plus all the way from the May contract, May 22 to May 23. So that compounded with dry conditions, you see the U.S. drought monitor map running right from South Dakota all the way down to Texas. All those states in tough shape. I think we've got numbers showing that 70% of the winter wheat acreage in the U.S. is in drought, severe drought. So tough times. It'd be a great time for rain to come. It would probably hurt prices a little bit, but we need the bushels, basically.
Dan's notes on the grain markets, as always, are posted on the agmanager.info website for your review, agmanager.info. And once again, Dan, many thanks for your comments.
Thanks, Eric. Take care.
Dan O'Brien, grain market economist, K-State Research and Extension. In a moment, a conversation with a Kansas grain producer and a K-State alum who is being recognized this week here at the university for his accomplishments. You're listening to Agriculture Today. Welcome back. You're listening to Agriculture Today, and once again, we are visiting with a handful of the individuals who have been named Alumni Fellows for Kansas State University here in 2022, representing each of the colleges at the institution. And they're on campus for that recognition this week, and the one being honored by the K-State College of Agriculture is across the way from us now. He is a year 2000 graduate of the Department of Agronomy at K-State and a successful farmer in central Kansas. Justin Knopf is with us. And first of all, Justin, congratulations on this recognition.
Well, thank you, Eric. I can't tell you, can't really express how meaningful this recognition is to me. I do not feel deserving whatsoever. And it's another meaningful opportunity to come and sit here in your studio and visit with you, a voice that I've listened to for many years and listened to nearly every day when I'm out in the field or in the pickup, tractor, sprayer, whatever, and to get updated on what's happening in agriculture and at K-State and the important work that the university is doing across the state. So it's a real honor for me to sit here and visit with you as well.
Kind words. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. You're a fifth-generation farmer in the gypsum area, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, my brother and I represent the fifth generation of our family to farm in that area. He is a K-State graduate as well. He's a graduate from the Ag Econ department. And we went back to farm together in 2003. I spent a few years off of the farm working as an agronomist in the seed industry before returning to the farm full time, which was valuable experience for me. And so when we went back to the farm, we made some significant transitions along with the partnership of our dad. We're fortunate to farm with a father who gives us a lot of leeway and trust when we were young men returning to the farm. And so we made some pretty significant transitions upon returning to the farm, moving and transitioning into a no-till system. And that's really been a learning process really ever since then, since we started that journey.
And we'll talk more about that, obviously, but you cover the standard crops on your farm, plus maybe some additional plantings, right?
That's right. So always very proud to grow wheat on our farm, to be a Kansas wheat farmer, of course. So we grow a fair bit of wheat, one of our major crops in our cropping system. We also grow alfalfa hay, which is maybe more than the average farm would in central Kansas as far as a percentage of our acres. But yeah, also grow soybeans, grain sorghum, corn. And we're mixing in some cover crops between those revenue crops for our biological system. So something that we're still learning a tremendous amount about and will continue to, but using some mixed species, both warm season and cool season, between those grain crops and figuring out where they fit and also making some mistakes along the way.
Conservation and stewardship more broadly is the hallmark of Knopf Farms. And that has been a transition ongoing for 20 years.
Yeah, at least 20-some years, and it's really a core value of our family, stewardship. You know, I saw that in my father and even my grandfather when I would spend time as a young boy walking fields alongside them. My father didn't have the opportunity to learn things as I did and attend college and to learn about agronomy. He worked with extension, some, but he didn't have the opportunity to stack knowledge on top of that core value as much as my brother and I have. So we're very fortunate to be able to have that knowledge that I learned here in agronomy and have continued to learn in partnership with K-State and other agronomists in the industry. To be able to stack knowledge on top of that core value of stewardship is really what has set the course in that journey of stewardship and matching our practices to that core value.
And the centerpiece here is soil conservation and improvement then. As you've instituted the practices, you've taken on the cover crops in the most recent years. Are you seeing progress?
Yeah, it's hard and difficult and slow to measure, right? It's the soil system, as any farmer knows, that it's a very resilient system inherently and very slow to change, which is good in many ways, but it also is slow to make change as we're trying to move in a direction of restoration. So really, fundamentally, we're trying to use five main practices, but the outcome we're wanting to see is a more resilient system. So when I came to K-State as an agronomy student, one of the early things I learned about is how water is captured and stored in soils. And I began to quickly realize some of the practices that we were doing did not lead to a soil function that would efficiently capture and store water for when our plants needed it. And I had seen plenty of our crops fail from drought. And, once I began to understand that knowledge, that's really what started that piece of knowledge, is what really started our transition and continues to lead our pursuing these practices of being able to better capture and store water and have a more resilient system. So I think, yeah, you're right. The soil is really foundational to how we see the natural resources, how we view the natural resources that we interact with on a daily basis. So we're working on practices that not only protect the soil but restore it. So that's keeping armor on top of it, keeping it covered, minimizing the disturbance to it, increasing the diversity in our biological system through crop rotation and adding cover crops where appropriate, having a living root in the soil as much as possible throughout the year. And then the fifth one is integration of livestock back into our cropping system, doing some grazing of cover crops. We're doing this at a very small kind of experimental level at this point in time. And so it's, those are kind of five fundamental things from a soil health, if you will, perspective that we are trying to implement across our farm. You can't lose sight of, however, it's nice and fun to talk about those things, but we can't lose sight of the importance of being profitable.
Right.
We have to be economically sustainable, and profitability has to be at the centerpiece of the conversation as well, because I can do all the things that are fun and enjoyable to talk about as far as from a conservation or environmental standpoint, but if I'm not profitable, and at the end of the day, it doesn't do a bit of good if I go out of business and am not there to continue that work of stewardship.
It all goes in lockstep. And we should note your activity with, among many, many other things, the Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. You're currently serving as the president of that organization.
Yeah, that's correct. I've been on the board probably too long at the Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. The reason I got involved with that organization really is because of some people that work there that are very special. Years ago, I had the opportunity to run into and meet Justin Gilpin, the CEO of Kansas Wheat, and to see and learn about his leadership And then also at the time, a young Dalton Henry, who was just fresh out of K-State and eager and ready to go conquer the world as the governmental relations person for Kansas Wheat. And those two made a great pair, and they still do, even though Dalton's in a different position at U.S. Wheat today. And so the opportunity as a farmer to work alongside and support the efforts of such great staff people and other individuals up there at Kansas Wheat was something that I felt good about investing my time in as a farmer. And additionally, I've always, of course, been passionate about wheat, and I think it's such an important crop, has been a staple for human food and the human diet for thousands of years. There's a new, I think, awareness of the relevance, importance of wheat with what's happening in Ukraine today, the tragedy that's happening over there, and another breadbasket of the world, where, between Ukraine and Russia, as much as possibly 30% of the world's wheat exports come out of each year. And so as a wheat producer in Kansas, where we are fortunate to be a reliable producer of grains for around the world, domestically and around the world, I think it's heightened the relevance of this wheat crop and being a wheat farmer, and just how significant that opportunity to be a reliable supplier with the natural resources that we have in the heartland of this country, how significant that is to both our freedom that we enjoy here and the world, honestly.
One last item. What, as you look ahead now, are the general ambitions for Knopf Farms moving forward then?
Yeah, it's, I never feel like I do anything really fast. I like to consider things and kind of a slow observer and then make decisions. And so I'm sure we're not going to see very big dramatic changes, but we certainly are going to continue on this journey of stewardship and partnering with the biological system that we work with every single day as a farmer. To continue to observe and learn more about our soils, how the biology of our soils interact with the plants that we're growing, and how to enable that system to support our efforts at growing crops, building upon those 5 basic principles of soil health and remaining profitable across time. And my wife, Lindsay, and I have 3 children. Our oldest, Charlotte, is 14. My son, Andrew, is 11, and our young Claire is 5. And so, we're at a very special time in our family right now at those ages, and just really trying to enjoy and take in this special season of life that my wife and I are in, and trying to focus on more of those invisible things and to continue to move our system in the direction of restoration.
Justin, a pleasure. Congratulations on the Alumni Fellow recognition, very richly deserved. Thank you for spending a few moments right here with us.
Ari, it's been my pleasure.
He's Justin Knopf, and he farms near Gypsum in Saline County, central Kansas. Alumni Fellow for the College of Agriculture here in 2022, a 2000 graduate of the college's Department of Agronomy. He's been on campus along with the other Alumni Fellows this week to receive that recognition. And we'll have more for you on Agriculture Today. Closing out this Agriculture Today, it's our glance to Kansas agricultural weather once again. Chip Redmond is with us via phone. Chip is the meteorologist with K-State Research and Extension, manning the weather data library here at the university. Well, we know it's dry, Chip. It's been another run of basically parched weather, and that's reflected in the drought monitor taking us up to this past Tuesday.
Yeah, so in April, we grow deficits quickly if we don't get moisture. And in the last week, we've grown as much as 0.4 of an inch in the west and up to and over an inch in the east of deficits this week alone. And so our deficits are growing quickly, and as a result, drought is also expanding. This week we saw expansion and extreme drought in most of southwest Kansas is now considered an extreme drought. We had growth of extreme in central Kansas and northwest Kansas, just broad expansion for much of the state, as well as severe drought too. The eastern part of the state is still drought-free for the most part, except for that far southeast. If we don't get some moisture in here really quickly, we're going to see that change as well, because it's really drying out quickly.
Let's talk about those prospects right here then. There is moisture moving in for the weekend for sure, in addition to what we've received here the last 24 hours?
As you look at the forecast today, Friday, and into Saturday, we expect several rounds of showers and thunderstorms, possibly severe. We could see some tornadoes and hail and the typical spring severe weather gamut. But moisture amounts are expected to be fairly light. We will not see widespread wetting rain for much of the state. The only area that will benefit the most will be the far east along the Missouri border and southeast, where they could see potentially up to 2 inches of rainfall. But once again, those are going to be very localized and not widespread.
And any relief expected at all for western Kansas, the worst of the worst as far as dryness?
Yeah, this afternoon and the evening, we'll have some isolated storms and another round of storms along a cold front overnight. But maybe a tenth of an inch to a quarter inch if you're really, really lucky, but nothing widespread, unfortunately.
Well, the outlook for the month of May, as well as for the 3-month stretch taking us through the summer, both of those were just posted, you say. Share the news, no matter what it might be, Chip.
I'd rather not share the news. It's just not a positive outlook. With La Nina persisting likely into summer now, that bodes very badly for precipitation across Kansas into the early summer. So as a result, above normal temperatures predicted statewide for May and through May, June, and July, all averaged out. And then same with precipitation. Below average precipitation is favored for the entire state in May. And then as we look at that 3-month average for May, June, and July, we're looking at even higher below normal chances of precipitation. So just not a good optimistic outlook right now.
This has been relentless, this particular La Nina. Is there any discussion of when it might finally come to an end?
Yeah, as you move into summer, typically La Nina is not quite as influential, but as of right now, it's been very destructive, basically breaking down other patterns that may help overcome La Nina, and that's why we've continued the La Nina outlook into summer. You know, models are starting to hint that we could perhaps keep La Nina into next fall, and that is very, very, very rare. What we call a double-dip La Nina persists for 2 winters, which is what we just had. But a triple-dip La Nina is very rare. I think it's only ever happened once ever. And so we kind of encountering uncharted territory a little bit in the sense of the ENSO.
We will hope for the best out of these systems through the weekend. And Chip, thank you once more. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Chip Redmond is a meteorologist with K-State Research and Extension, along with us each Friday to take a look at Kansas agricultural weather. With that, our time's away. Thanks for tuning in, and the best to you this weekend. Eric Atkinson for Agriculture Today, over at the K-State Radio Network.